Every time you think you're out, they pull you back in with a win like Sundays. We'll get into the weekend of games and talk about what was a crazy roster weekend on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I am your host, Jeff Ellis. Justin had, I think he said 5 flights. He texted me not long after this game ended. He should be back tomorrow, but if he's got some jet lag, maybe another day you're stuck with just me. I am Jeff Ellis, as I previously stated. We got 3 big games to talk about. I always like to give some kudos to those who have been let go. We're going to get into that on the show. Maybe not always the biggest names, but we like to give everyone their moment of shine. And then we'll just get into a roster ridiculous weekend on today's Locked On Guardians. But let's start with these games. Happy Father's Day, post-Father's Day to all you dads out there. Let's just go through them in order. Friday night's game. Zach Gallen on the mound. Zach Gallen's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's a Cy Young candidate right now. They looked not great against Gallen. You look at Gallen's final box score, 7 innings, 6 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts. He did give up the 1 home run in this one to Jose Ramirez, his 11th. Yeah, they struggled. They faced a great pitcher. He shut him down. I don't think they managed to walk against the bullpen either. So on average, you get about 7 hits. You'd think about 2 runs. They got 1 doing that box score bingo. On the other side of things, Touki Toussaint was all right for those who weren't paying attention. Triston McKenzie elbow issue. We'll discuss it more in segment 2. I am not feeling good about it. I think that was, as much as everyone was focused on Bo Naylor and Mike Zunino, to me, that is the biggest news of the weekend was the Triston McKenzie info. Xavier Curry comes in for 1 2/3 innings, gives up 2 earned runs. And then Eniel De Los Santos comes in and gives up a run. It feels like the last few times for both Curry and De Los Santos, they've been getting up runs when they come in. Not the strongest performances of late for them. Sam Henches comes in to get the final out in this one. Cleveland just doesn't have any offense, can't put anything together in this one. The other side of things, 11 hits for Arizona. And then I think something we got to talk about is for a team that has been known for drafting command artists, developing guys with some command, they've been walking a lot of players in a lot of these games over this past week. It has been an issue. They walked 7. That is, you combine it, that's 18 opportunities. That should come out to about 6 runs. They only got 5 for Arizona. This one was just you felt out of it pretty early on from the beginning. If you're a fan of this team who reached base twice, well, there's Jose Ramirez, and that's it. If I was trying to look for 3 stars, I would be hard-pressed in this game just because 1 extra base hit, no stolen bases. The bullpen was mediocre. I mean, you probably go Henches, you go Jose, and then let's see, did anyone have, not have a strikeout and a hit? Maybe Will Brennan, because at least he didn't strike out. I mean, they had 9 punch-outs. They got quite a few in this one. So that's Friday's game. After losing 2 out of 3 to San Diego, you're hoping that they're going to start turning it on after. But it's the exact same thing as San Diego, which we saw, which is 2 losses, then the win. And all of a sudden the offense appears for 1 game and makes the numbers look better than they probably should overall because it's a big offensive game. Just not a lot of consistency. Saturday's game. Tommy Henry isn't very good. This is the game I probably felt the best about on paper. Bieber, if he only goes 7 innings, this game looks better for him. But going into that 8th inning, ends up giving up 5 runs, only striking out 5 again. This is the issue. I got into some arguments on Twitter. His value is going to be limited if he can't miss bats, and he is not missing bats. Going 7 innings and striking out 5, it still puts you below 8 for your strikeouts per 9. And 8 is kind of the minimum anymore. Strikeouts are up across baseball every single year for the last 5 years, unless you're Shane Bieber, where they've been down for the last 3 years in a row. It's a serious concern with him. Nick Sandlin comes in, finishes out that inning, also gives up a run via the home run after when he comes in. But the bottom line is It was a tie game. Setting Bieber out in the eighth to go through this lineup was questionable, and it blew up in their face, and they got 4 across. Cleveland would come back and get 1 in the ninth, but it just wouldn't be enough. Now, maybe if they pulled him earlier, if they'd gone, I mean, Clase didn't pitch this weekend. I know that because he's on my So Rare team. It was a big old DNP. So maybe if they go to Trevor Stephan in the eighth and Clase in the ninth, maybe they end up winning this. Maybe that run is enough. All of a sudden, we're looking at this whole weekend series and this team a lot differently. If they go and take 2 out of 3 from the first place Arizona Diamondbacks in a very tough NL West, instead they drop 2 out of 3. But this could have been a 3-2 game. I really sit back and I'm like, why? Bieber's pitch count for the whole game, if I'm trying to remember, I think he was under 100 even when he got yanked. But the course of this one, it was just I strongly question that choice to send him out there. Then again, they went out, and when they ran into problems, they brought their closer in early. Miguel Castro got the win. They didn't save him for the save situation. They saw a situation where they needed him for high leverage. Kyle Nelson, they tried to give the save to. It didn't work. Former Guardian pitcher has been great for them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to leave in someone like Shane Bieber in for the eighth because he's someone, and especially once you start getting guys on base, because he's a pitch to contact guy. He is not someone who's going to go out there and strike guys out. We've seen that all year. So like my big complaint is you get into, let me pull up the eighth inning in particular. So he gets this, starts off with a home run. Someone should have been up to begin with. I can't remember where someone was or wasn't now. Then he gets he struck out Perdomo, but you're at the top of the lineup with McCarthy and Perdomo. So again, I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you sending him back through this lineup again? This is just such a mistake. Then the single, then gives up another home run. Corbin Carroll, the MVP candidate, comes back around. They finally get him out after that. But after the McCarthy home run, he should have been out of this game. Shouldn't have been a chance to give up 2 more runs. It's just unfortunate the way that played out, but at the same time, like they also just offensively, one of those issues is Kwan and Rosario had 8 hits. Cleveland had 9. They did manage 4 walks in this one, but still, that means of their 13 opportunities, if you count the error as a base runner, 14 opportunities, 8 of them came from 2 guys, which then limits your ability to do anything because it's not more balanced throughout. And then you also need those guys running. Like I know Ahmed often swings at first pitches, and this was a great game for him, but you needed Kwan to steal some bases. So when Ahmed got a single, there's a chance he could score. So you're maybe set up more for someone like Jose to have some more sac flies, get some more runs on the board. They needed to be running more in this second game. They needed to not leave Shane Bieber. And there was a way to win this game, even though they out-hit the Diamondbacks. But there were ways to get on Andres Jimenez with his 5th home run, showing some more signs of life. Your people who reached base multiple times in this game were Jimenez, Kwan, Rosario. I believe that was it. Again, it's just some of the deployment is irksome in this one overall. And I think this was a game that could have won. Kwan did get the 1 stolen base. I would have liked to have just seen more opportunities, more running, not leaving Bieber in so long. Kwan and Rosario easily 2 stars in this one. And I think you have to give the other one to Jimenez for 1 hit, but it was the only extra base hit. And for the walk, having reached base twice. Pitching wise, Bieber just gets pulled after 7. He's probably a star in this one. And then today's final game, boy, I mean, this game was over by the 5th. I felt kind of bad for Bo Naylor because the 3 pass balls and then striking out to a guy who's barely hitting 40 miles an hour. He looked like Zunino out there. It's like, oh, we cut him to get the exact copy. Listen, Bo Naylor's going to have a lot of wild, and they weren't pass balls, they're wild pitches, but those are what people were kind of complaining about with Zunino as well. Naylor is not a finished product. We are going to see kind of equal defense to what we saw with Zunino out there. Hopefully the offense will pick up a little bit more. He did have 1 walk in this game, but everyone got on base. I think David Fry, who didn't have an at-bat, is the only player who entered this game and didn't get on base. One of the weirdest things I've saw all year is Stephen Kwan, 1 hit, no walks, but scored 4 runs just because he kept hitting into fielders' choices and then staying on base. Or, you don't see that line a lot where there is one time they're on base. I think one of those errors was when he was hitting, and you get 4 runs out of it. Ahmed Rosario reached base twice in this one. Who else reached base twice? Andres Jimenez, and then Miles Straw. I mean, Miles Straw was your on-base champ in this one. He had 2 hits and 2 walks, and of course, no stolen bases. Josh Naylor with the only stolen base. I don't know why Straw isn't running. I don't know what's going on there. He should be someone you're thinking could hit 40 this year, and he's not even close. Tanner Bybee wasn't sharp, but he was effective. And this was the second game in a row he wasn't at his most sharp, but he was a lot more effective with it. You could tell, he had 7 hits and 3 walks. He was averaging 2 base runners an inning. That's not great. But he only went 5, gave up 3. This team desperately needed someone to go a little deeper into games. That was also why they pushed Bieber, I understand, because, no one had gone 5 innings in a while before Bieber went his 7 and a third. But Morgan, Heron, Norris in particular, and again, we're going to eat into a little bit of our segment 2 time here talking about this game. But Norris was those 2 extra innings were huge for this for this team. Excuse me. But yeah, it is kind of funny to see Straw and Rosario have identical OPSs virtually. Ahmed's at 616, Straw at 617. Those are certainly the 2 whipping boys, but I do want to point out that, they are not that far off. From guys like Kwan and Jimenez. They're only about 60 points behind them, for as much as there's smack talk, by myself included, about Rosario and Straw, that those 2 maybe aren't as consistently bad as we think. This weekend certainly helped both of their statistical profiles. The box score bingo of this one, 16 hits, 4 walks, and was there the 1 error. So 21 opportunities. That should be about 7 runs. They got 12. Now, you get to 12 when you have an inning like they had in the 4th, where you bat around. That's how you excel, especially when they had 3 triples, 5 extra base hits in general. The other side of things, they had 9 hits, and again, not the lack of sharpness. 7 walks, so 16. That's the thing. Cleveland doesn't walk. I don't know if it's is it that Cleveland's pitchers are walking more, or Cleveland's hitters just aren't patient enough to get the walks, because that was an issue a year ago. But 16 opportunities, that should have been good for about 5 runs for the Diamondbacks. They only had 3. So they underperformed, even though they had 3 doubles and a home run. Again, that speaks to Bybee being able to work out of jams and be unflappable, which is what they needed. 3 stars in this game. Well, like I said, I think you give 1 to Straw for reaching base 4 times. I know people are going to already accuse me of, my defense of him. 4 hits for Naylor gets him the other one. And then I'm going to Daniel Norris. 2 innings, no hits, 3 walks. He got through it. He ate some innings when this team needed it. 1 out of 3. It was a fun game on Father's Day, a fun gift for the fathers out there. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about the roster craziness that happened over the last few days, and give a second for those who've been let go from the Cleveland Guardian system. All in a moment. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right, so next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And I want to remind everyone to check out SiriusXM for the upcoming series that Cleveland has. It's not the Brewers. Why am I having a complete... It's the Oakland Athletics. It's Oakland, then it's the Brewers, then it's the Royals. I could not think who it was. But just type Guardians into your search engine, and you will be able to listen to a suddenly much better Oakland Athletics team. I know Justin wants to talk about Rob Manfred's comments when he gets back, so I'm not going to touch on them. He is a jerk, a tool, and a terrible. Listen, he is there to be the stooge of the owners, and that's exactly what he is doing. So we'll move on from that. In terms of Oakland, I wanted to see if I could see their last 10. They're 19-55. I feel like they've had a relatively decent run of late. We'll get into some more of that on tomorrow's show. Interesting. We'll see if that happens. But getting back into the roster craziness, because there is no other way around to describe it than roster craziness. So Friday, it gets out. I'm trying to think exactly what time. Around 5:40 my time, so like 6, 7. The Zunino is designated for assignment. Toussaint is being called up. Cody Morris is being optioned to AAA. The Zunino was there to open the spot for Toussaint. If you're going to call up a pitcher, you have to send down a pitcher. So even though they're opening up the 40-man spot, they couldn't just bring up a pitcher because you can only have a maximum of 13 pitchers. So you had to send someone down. Now, I immediately thought that there could be multiple reasons for sending down Cody Morris, even though they just called him up and he'd pitched a bunches. The other bit of information we got, and I think the most important bit, that they needed a starter because Triston McKenzie's elbow was bothering him, which is a different injury than his previous injury, and that he wasn't going to pitch. So they need someone who could come in. And Toussaint made sense, and he was lined up to pitch. If you remember back to when Savale or someone got hurt, I can't remember the exactness, before Tanner Bybee came up, I made the case for why Toussaint makes the most sense for that, arm you can call up and immediately designate for assignment afterwards. And that's exactly what they did here. It was a month later and it was a different situation, but with an injured pitcher, he was always the guy that kind of made sense to go give you 3 to 4 innings. And then they'll designate him for assignment. He'll clear waivers. He'll go back to the minors, and there's a nice pay bump for the day for him. And, if he gets claimed, it's an even better situation for him. So it works out well for Tukey, but for Cleveland, it was an emergency situation. And when you have the plan for Cody Morris was to be a reliever. But if Triston McKenzie's elbow is a serious issue and he might not pitch for a while, if he might, I think someone talked about when they did the MRI, there was a UCL injury. We all know that's not good. And there's often something that when we talk about UCLs, that we then talk about Tommy John afterwards. If that's the case, Triston McKenzie isn't pitching in Cleveland until sometime late in 2024 and isn't the same command pitcher until 2025. Command takes about a year after they return from surgery to get completely back to where it was. It's a pretty terrible situation to occur. We'll see. Maybe I'm overestimating it, but I thought that was the news of the day. Zunino hasn't been good. Yes, cutting him. I know people were excited about that, but everything else was under this cloud of Triston McKenzie and his arm. So you send down Cody Morris in this particular case of all those pitchers because he had pitched recently. You wanted some fresh arms, and maybe you're stretching him out because you don't think you're going to have access to McKenzie. And again, I was, if you listened, I was on Arizona radio this past weekend to talk about this series. And I don't know if Gavin Williams gets a call up this year. I don't know if they want all of their great pitchers on the same free agent clock. I think that is something to consider and something they do consider. And, I don't know if Cantillo will get to the big leagues this year. I don't know what's going to happen with the Espino of it all. I mean, we're still kind of in the holding pattern. He's probably not going to pitch this year, but I don't think we've had any further updates. I think there's a hesitancy to move up Williams, to have all three this year in the big leagues. I could be wrong, but I feel like Morris is getting stretched out because long term, I think they would prefer him as a starter because he has the stuff to start. And if he can be healthy, and moving a guy to the pen doesn't necessarily make him healthier because you have a chance to pitch every day instead of just that every fifth day and that chance to rest your arm between starts. So I think sending Morris down was a clear sign in this situation to me that I read it as they're going to stretch him out. That wasn't the original plan, but now with everything else happening, that there is a good chance they're going to trade Shane Bieber. There is a good chance McKenzie isn't going to pitch this year. Quantrill might be back soon, so that will help their depth a little. We might see either Allen or Bybee back in AAA, likely one of those two. this is a way to then stretch out Morris. So if you do have a trade situation, or even with this McKenzie situation, you might not be sending anyone down when Quantrell's ready, right? Because McKenzie's not healthy. So then you have these 5 now. And if the situation occurs where you then do trade Cody Morris or trade Shane Bieber, then Cody Morris could be the guy who steps in, could be that 5th starter. I also don't think they are opposed to Hunter Gaddis getting a longer look in this rotation. I know that's not what people want to hear, but I think that's what it sets up for. I do think McKenzie is going to be out for a bit. I think he'll eventually, when Quantrell is ready, he's going to move into that spot. Your 2 young arms will stay up in Bibee and Allen because health has been an issue for this rotation. And we'll kind of see from here. It is not ideal. They then had the next day. They were down a position player. They called up Bo Naylor for the second day of it. They're going to carry 3 catchers all year. It's going to be these 3. So David Fry, Bo Naylor, and Kem Gallagher. I think that is their preference to have this 3-catcher lineup. I think that is what we'll see. And Daniel Norris got the call up, and he replaced Tuki Toussaint, who was designated for assignment. That is your roster fodder spot. We should also point out Richie Palacios was traded to the Cardinals, I believe, for $100K in cash. Got reported somewhere. Weird that the Cardinals claimed him. They're a pretty deep team all in all. They also have outfielders for days, and they already have too many. But they like those Cleveland cast-offs. We really liked Jose Fermin. They went out, I believe he's hurt, and made that trade for him in the offseason. They've sent a decent chunk of change to Cleveland for some of their prospects so far between Fermin and Palacios. So I thought that was kind of an interesting landing. But yeah, lots of roster moves. It's going to be interesting to see. McKenzie's officially on the disabled list now. I believe so. I'm trying to remember the exact one. Yeah, he is on the IL with a right elbow strain. We had Bo Naylor, Tim Herron, and Daniel Norris called up with the Tuki Toussaint being designated for assignment. So that meant that because they originally didn't put McKenzie on the DL when they called up Tuki replaced Cody Morris and Mike Zunino. Those 2 moves got Tuki up. So when you got rid of Tuki, then that allowed them to bring in 2 new relievers. Next time through the rotation, we'll probably see Hunter Gaddis start, unless Quantrell's ready to go. They have this off day in the week to help kind of reorganize things, but we should see Bo. Bo's not going to catch Bieber because Bieber is very particular about his catcher. He knows Gallagher. It's going to go well there. Bo has caught, Bibee and Allen before, so he might catch them because of more knowledge with them. I bet we'll see Gallagher with with Savale. And then, Hunter Gaddis in that 5th spot is likely until Quantrell is healthy, and then we'll see from there. But that is, I think, what we're looking at with this team right now. So we're going to come back from a quick break and take a moment and give some guys who deserve their due on today's Locked On Guardians. Want to remind you to check out SiriusXM. Just type Guardians into the SiriusXM app. You'll be able to check out this upcoming series against Oakland on SiriusXM. Okay, so long, farewell, Avita Zen, good night to Brett Daniels. On top of, we'll see what happens with Mike Zunino. There's an outside chance he is back catching in AAA. He clears waivers and decides he wants to collect his money. I mean, that's what happens with Zach Plesac. Like, he's still got a contract, I believe, with someone like Zunino, and like we've seen with various, I think of Scott Kingery and some of those guys the teams have taken off their 40-man roster. The Angels currently with is it David Fletcher, the second baseman, who's actually playing pretty decently for them in AAA. But again, that AAA part is pretty terrible. But I believe Zunino, there's a chance he just ends up the AAA catcher for a bit. So I don't think he's gone. We already mentioned Richie Palacios, but Brett Daniels was one of those guys filling in a relief role, bouncing between double and AAA. Had some success at AA and very limited innings. In AAA, wasn't going as well. Cleveland's moving around some guys. Should also point out Jaime Arias, who we've talked about on the show multiple times, is the good organizational soldier, suspended 80 games for performance enhancing or just for substance. It's not always performance enhancing in the minors. I'm not going to imply anything. I don't have any knowledge, but he is someone who they lost access to another arm. He was one of those guys. He was basically their Tanner Tully, since Tanner Tully, I believe, went to the Yankees. They released Angel Mendoza, 5'10" outfielder from Venezuela. Is he really 22? That kind of explains why he was let go. 62 at bats in the ACL. Numbers were not strong. He was signed in 2019, and at this point in time, I'm sorry, no, he'd be 21. Just had not been able to get himself into a point where he was able to show enough or do enough. And that's kind of going to be the story with a lot of these players that I talk about today. These are the players who you let go in the little minors you probably aren't familiar with, but Jesus, I'm not sure, Lara, signed July 2nd, 2018, 5'8" shortstop. This was probably the name that was the most familiar to me amongst this group. He had not played in the Arizona League since 2021. He was assigned to the Guardians roster status. I'm not sure if there's an injury or what occurred in there, but last year and this year, he didn't have any data. He doesn't actually have a birthday on his homepage. He was one of those players they moved on from. Edgar Garmargo was an interesting one. He was 21 years of age, just because I vaguely remembered him because after I talked about him after the 2021 season, because Cleveland signed him after the Cubs let him go. He had not played at all this year. He had in the ACL all of 2 plate appearances last year, was kind of a backup catcher. Again, an older player that they were kind of, older being like 21 for Arizona. And then Henier Gomez had the most returns when I was looking up guys. He was going to turn 21 in August. He had never played in Arizona. He was signed to the ACL Guardians in 2022. He never played in Arizona. His last stats were for the Dominican Summer League back in 2019. So another player, all these guys got closer to the big leagues than I believe anyone listening to this podcast. So I just like to give those guys a bit of a shout out and a moment, because this is the moment they get, unfortunately. I like to make sure no one kind of passes through the night unknown. Everyone goes out and tries their hardest. It's not an easy game to make it. Tomorrow's show, we'll have Justin back. We'll look a little bit at the Oakland Athletics. There's not too much for us to dive into there, but we're going to spend some time on that. We're going to talk prospects. We're probably going to talk some draft. Paul Skeens definitely had a lot of people thirsting for him after this weekend. Had a lot of people comparing him to Steven Strasburg. He's going to be an interesting player. I am still Dylan Cruz all the way. But I saw CBS did a mock. A lot of people are just following on Colt Emerson to Cleveland. I don't think so. I'm going to put it that way. I don't think they're going to go. I think this is a college-heavy team now. I would be looking for a college guy. Maybe talk some draft tomorrow. I might do a mock over on my personal site. I'll link it through my Twitter at JeffMLBDraft if you want to see or watch that. But thank you all for being a part of the Locked On Guardians listenership and or team. Hopefully this team's... Listen, that's 2 straight series losses after they won 4 out of 5 series with a tie in the middle. The nice thing is Milwaukee is scuffling. And we do get Corbin Burns in that one. Oakland is Oakland, a team designed to fail. The Royals are worse than Oakland, and Cleveland has them. There's some room in this schedule to make up some ground. If they want to, they're currently 2.5 back of the 500 Twins. 5 games under 500. If they want to start making some moves in terms of the standings, it has to happen now. They have to, they need to sweep Oakland. They need to sweep Kansas City. They need to take... They need Shane Bieber to beat Wade Miley. They need Tanner Bybee to beat Freddie Peralta before facing Corbin Burns. It's a team that needs to go on a hot stretch, a real prolonged one. Win 4 games in a row. Sweep a series. Thank you all for listening, being part of the Locked On Guardians team, being an everydayer. Devin, I feel like always likes the tweets when I put up a now. thank you to him. Nathan Kingsley, are you still listening? I used to like our conversations. I would love to hear what you were up to. Shroom Media. That was someone like 2 years ago who'd comment every day. I don't know what happened to him. Zal Zenner. These are the names of the guys I remember are old school everydayers. I'd love to hear from some of them. But thank you all who are an everyday or a part-timer. Please download daily, review, do your part to be part of the Locked On Guardians team, and go Guardians, go.